Picture this. A 70-year-old billionaire crying in his own kitchen, unaware that every sob, every broken word, is being recorded by someone he trusts, someone he pays, someone who sleeps just 3 rooms away. That person isn't an enemy. She's his maid. And within hours, his pain becomes entertainment for 5 million strangers online. This is the story of Charles and Marilyn Westbrook, a couple who had everything except privacy, because the woman folding their sheets and serving their meals was building a social media empire on their worst moments. And when they finally discovered the truth, the confrontation that followed changed all their lives forever. You think you know how this ends? You don't. Because what happened next went far beyond betrayal. It became something none of them expected. Stay with me. This is a story you won't forget. Charles Westbrook wasn't born into wealth. At 70 years old, he could still remember the small apartment in Detroit where he grew up, where the heat never worked right and dinner was whatever his mother could stretch across 4 days. He built his empire the hard way, one property at a time, one deal at a time, until his name became synonymous with luxury real estate across 3 states. People respected Charles. They envied him. They wanted to be him. But what they didn't see were the cracks underneath all that success. The late nights spent alone in his office. The way he'd stopped reaching for his wife's hand at dinner. The silence that had crept into their marriage like winter fog. Marilyn Westbrook was 58, elegant, and tired. She ran a chain of boutique hotels across Georgia, properties that catered to celebrities and executives who paid premium prices for discretion. She was the woman everyone called polished, put together, the one who made hosting 100 guests look effortless. But inside that mansion, behind those floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Atlanta's skyline, Marilyn felt invisible. Her husband barely looked at her anymore. Their conversations had become transactional. Good morning. Did you pay the landscaper? I'll be late tonight. She couldn't remember the last time Charles had asked how she was feeling. Really feeling. Not the version she showed the world. The real Marilyn, the one who cried in the shower so no one would hear. From the outside, they were perfection. The kind of couple featured in lifestyle magazines with headlines like, Power Partners. How the Westbrooks built an empire together. Their home was stunning. A modern masterpiece of glass and steel nestled in Buckhead. Filled with art, they'd collected over 30 years of marriage. Dinner parties. Charity galas. Smiling photos. But perfection was exhausting. And both of them were running out of energy to pretend. That's when Amara entered their lives. She was 26, from a small town in Nigeria, and she'd come to America with dreams bigger than her suitcase. Dreams of becoming someone. Of telling stories that mattered. Of being seen. When she answered the ad for a live-in housekeeper, Marilyn was impressed by her quiet professionalism. Amara was polite, efficient, never asked for anything extra. She kept her room tidy, did her work without complaint, and seemed content to fade into the background. That was exactly what Marilyn wanted. Someone who wouldn't add to the noise in her life. But Amara wasn't content. Not really. Every night, after the dishes were done and the laundry was folded, she'd retreat to her small room and scroll through TikTok, watching people with millions of followers share their lives. She wanted that. She wanted to matter, to be more than invisible. And then one night, she heard something that changed everything. It started with a fight. Not the first one, but the loudest. Charles had come home late again, smelling like bourbon and exhaustion. Marilyn was waiting in the kitchen, arms crossed, jaw tight. "Where were you?" she'd asked, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. Charles sighed, the kind of sigh that said he was too tired for this conversation. "Working, Marilyn. Same place I always am." But Marilyn wasn't buying it anymore. Working? Or avoiding me? The question hung in the air like smoke. Charles turned away, poured himself water, said nothing. And that silence, that deliberate, cutting silence, made something inside Marilyn snap. "I'm tired of this, Charles. I'm tired of pretending everything's fine when you can barely stand to be in the same room as me." Charles slammed the glass down on the counter. "You think I don't know that? You think I enjoy coming home to this?" Marilyn's voice cracked. "Then why did you marry me? Why did you promise me forever if you were just going to leave me emotionally while still living in the same house? Upstairs, Amara froze. She'd been heading to the laundry room when she heard the shouting. Her first instinct was to turn around to give them privacy. But something stopped her. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was loneliness. Or maybe it was the phone already in her hand. The voice recorder app opened before she even realized what she was doing. She pressed record. The argument escalated. Marilyn was crying now, her voice breaking between words. I feel like I'm drowning, Charles. And you're just watching me sink. Charles's response was quieter, but somehow worse. Maybe some people aren't meant to be saved. The words hit like a slap. Amara's hand trembled as she held the phone. This wasn't just an argument. This was devastation. This was the kind of raw, ugly truth that people spent their whole lives trying to hide. And she had it. All of it. Captured. That night, Amara couldn't sleep. She listened to the recording 3 times, feeling the weight of what she'd done. This was wrong. She knew it was wrong. These people had given her a job, a place to live, a chance at a better life. But the recording was gold. She could feel it. She'd been posting anonymous audio clips for weeks now, little snippets of rich people drama that she picked up around the house. Generic stuff, nothing identifiable, and people loved it. Her follower count had grown from 200 to 15,000 in just a month. But this was different. This was real pain, real emotion, the kind of content that doesn't just get views. It goes viral. Before we dive deeper, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And if you're new here, click on the subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. Amara told herself she'd edit it carefully. She'd blur out any identifying details. Keep it anonymous. Safe. She posted it the next morning with a simple caption. When money can't buy happiness. The video exploded. 100,000 views in the first hour. Then 500,000. By that evening it had crossed 2 million. The comments poured in like a flood. This is heartbreaking. I need part 2. Who are these people? This is better than any TV show I've ever watched. Amara stared at her phone, watching the numbers climb, feeling something she'd never felt before. Power, validation, fame. She was no longer invisible. Over the next few weeks, Amara's content evolved. She started posting regularly, always anonymous, always careful. But the stories got more specific. The details got sharper. She mentioned the mansion, the luxury cars, the hotels Marilyn owned, the real estate empire Charles had built. She never said their names, but the clues were there. And her audience? They were obsessed. They started guessing, creating theories, trying to figure out who this mysterious billionaire couple was. Some people called her a hero for exposing the fake lives of the rich. Others called her a vulture, profiting off someone else's pain. But everyone was watching. Everyone was talking. And Amara's follower count kept climbing. 400,000, 600,000, 800,000. She was becoming a star. But success has a price. And Amara was about to learn that lesson the hard way. Darren Westbrook came home unannounced on a Tuesday afternoon. He was 32, sharp-suited, and carried himself with the quiet confidence of someone who'd grown up with money but never forgotten what it took to earn it. He worked in New York now, running a venture capital firm, but Atlanta was still home. And lately, something about his parents' phone calls had felt off. His mother's voice sounded strained. His father kept cutting conversations short. So Darren decided to visit. He didn't call ahead. He just showed up. The house felt different the moment he walked in. Quieter. Heavier. His parents were polite but distant with each other, moving through the rooms like strangers sharing a hotel. Darren watched them carefully, the way he'd learned to read people in boardrooms. He noticed the way his father avoided eye contact with his mother, the way his mother's smile never quite reached her eyes. And then he noticed Amara. She'd always been there, of course, quiet and efficient, but Darren had never paid much attention to her before. Now, though, he saw something different. The way she always seemed to have her phone nearby. The way she'd linger just outside rooms when conversations got heated. The way she'd disappear right after arguments, only to reappear minutes later looking flushed, almost excited. It was subtle, but Darren made his career reading subtle tells. He started paying attention, watching. One evening, his parents had another fight. Nothing physical, just the slow, painful kind of argument that feels like watching something die in real time. Marilyn's voice, tight with hurt. Charles's silence, cold and impenetrable. And Amara, standing in the hallway just out of sight, phone in hand, screen glowing. Darren saw her. Their eyes met for half a second before she turned and hurried away. That night, Darren couldn't sleep. He lay in his old bedroom, staring at the ceiling, trying to make sense of what he'd seen. Was he being paranoid? Was Amara really just checking her phone at a bad time? Or was something else going on? He grabbed his own phone and, more out of curiosity than suspicion, opened TikTok. He scrolled aimlessly for a few minutes, then typed in a search, "rich couple drama." The results were immediate. And there, at the top of the search, was an account with 1.2 million followers. Behind the money, the bio read, "The real stories the wealthy don't want you to know." Darren clicked. The most recent video had 7 million views. It was audio only, played over a generic video of a mansion at sunset. But the audio. Oh God, the audio. "I feel like I'm drowning, Charles. And you're just watching me sink." Darren's blood went cold. That was his mother's voice. He would know it anywhere. He sat up, hands shaking, and scrolled through the account. Video after video, story after story, all of them about his family. Some were old arguments he vaguely remembered. Others were recent. All of them deeply, painfully personal. The comments were worse. Thousands of strangers dissecting his parents' marriage, making jokes, taking sides, treating their pain like a reality show. Darren felt sick, but he also felt something else. Clarity. He knew exactly who was behind this account, and he knew exactly what he had to do. The next morning, Darren waited until his parents left for work. Then he went looking for Amara. He found her in her room, door slightly open, sitting at her small desk with her laptop open. She was editing a video, headphones on, completely absorbed in her work. Darren knocked softly. Amara jumped, yanking off her headphones, eyes wide. "Mr. Westbrook, I didn't hear you. I'm sorry, I was just... Can I come in?" Darren's voice was calm. Too calm. Amara nodded, quickly closing her laptop, but not before Darren caught a glimpse of the screen. The TikTok editing interface. The behind the money logo in the corner. She knew he'd seen it. Darren stepped inside and closed the door behind him. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then Darren pulled out his phone and held it up, showing her account on the screen. "Amara," he said quietly, "I think we need to talk." Amara's face went pale. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. Darren sat down on the edge of her bed, still holding up his phone. "How long?" he asked. Not angry, just tired. Amara's voice came out small, barely a whisper. "A few months." Darren nodded slowly, like he'd been expecting that answer. He scrolled through her page, stopping on the video with his mother's voice. "This one has 7 million views." Amara flinched. "I never meant to hurt anyone." Darren looked up at her, really looked at her, and for the first time since he'd arrived, his composure cracked. "Do you have any idea what you've done? That's my mother crying. That's my father breaking. That's my family. And you turned it into entertainment for strangers." Tears spilled down Amara's face. I know it was wrong, but you don't understand. I came here with nothing. I've been invisible my whole life. People look right through me like I don't exist. And then I started posting these videos, and for the first time people saw me. They listened to me. They cared about what I had to say." Darren's jaw tightened. "So you used my parents' pain to make yourself famous?" Amara's voice broke. "It wasn't supposed to be like this. At first it was just little things, generic stuff. But then people wanted more. The algorithm wanted more. And I got caught up in it. The followers, the comments, the messages from people saying my content helped them feel less alone. I felt like I mattered. She wiped her face with shaking hands. I know that doesn't make it okay. I know I crossed a line. But I was desperate. I'm still desperate. I'm 26 years old. And I have nothing. No family here. No real friends. No future except cleaning other people's houses until I'm too old to work. Darren stood up, pacing the small room. You think my parents don't feel desperate? You think money makes people immune to loneliness? My mother cries herself to sleep most nights. My father works 80-hour weeks because he doesn't know how to fix what's broken at home. They're human, Amara. They're struggling. And you weaponized that. Amara sobbed. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'll delete everything. I'll shut down the account. I'll leave. Just please don't tell them it was me. Please. Darren stopped pacing. He looked at her. This young woman who'd made a terrible choice out of loneliness and desperation, and he felt something unexpected. Not forgiveness exactly, but understanding. He thought about his own life, the pressure to succeed, the fear of being ordinary, the hunger to be seen as more than just Charles Westbrook's son. He got it. He got all of it. And that scared him. I'm not going to fire you, Darren said finally. Amara's head snapped up. What? I'm not going to fire you, but I'm also not going to let this continue. Tomorrow morning, we're telling my parents the truth. Together. The meeting happened in the living room. Marilyn and Charles sat on opposite ends of the long leather couch, confused about why their son had called this emergency family meeting. Amara stood by the window, arms wrapped around herself, looking like she might faint. Darren stood in the center of the room, phone in hand, and said the words that would change everything. Mom, Dad, there's something you need to know. For the past few months, someone has been recording your private conversations and posting them online. The account has over 1 million followers. The videos have been viewed tens of millions of times. The color drained from Marilyn's face. Charles went very still. What are you talking about? Charles's voice was low, dangerous. Darren pulled up the account on his phone and handed it to his father. Charles stared at the screen, scrolling slowly, his expression unreadable. Marilyn leaned over to look, and the moment she heard her own voice playing from one of the videos, she gasped. Oh my God! Charles looked up from the phone, his eyes scanning the room, landing on Amara. Who did this? He knew. They all knew. But someone had to say it out loud. Amara stepped forward, her voice shaking so badly she could barely get the words out. It was me. I recorded you. I posted the videos. And I am so sorry. Silence. The kind of silence that's heavier than sound. Marilyn stood up, her hands trembling. You. This whole time it was you. We trusted you. We let you into our home. We treated you like family. Amara was crying openly now. I know, and I have no excuse. What I did was unforgivable. I violated your privacy. I betrayed your trust. I turned your pain into content because I was selfish and desperate, and I wanted to feel like I mattered. But that doesn't make it okay. Nothing makes it okay. Charles's voice was ice. Get out. Amara nodded, already turning toward the door. Wait. Everyone turned to look at Darren. Before she goes, I think we need to talk about why this happened. Not to excuse it, but to understand it. Charles's face reddened. Understand it? What's there to understand? She betrayed us for clicks and followers. Darren nodded. Yes, she did. But she also held up a mirror to something we've all been avoiding. He looked at his parents. I came home because I could feel something was wrong. And now I know what it is. You two are falling apart, and you've been hiding it. Not just from the world, but from each other. From yourselves. From me. Marilyn's voice was barely audible. Darren, this isn't the time. Mom, when is the time? When you finally file for divorce. When Dad moves out. When this marriage ends because neither of you had the courage to say out loud that you're hurting. Darren's voice cracked. I'm not defending what Amara did. But maybe, in some twisted way, this is the wake-up call you both needed. Because millions of strangers have been watching your marriage crumble while you pretend everything's fine. And that's not her fault. That's on you. The room fell silent again. Charles sank back onto the couch, suddenly looking every one of his 70 years. Marilyn covered her face with her hands, and Amara stood frozen, unsure if she was still being kicked out or if something else was happening. After what felt like hours but was probably only minutes, Charles spoke. "What do you want us to do, Darren?" Darren took a breath. "I want you to stop pretending. I want you to talk to each other. Really talk. Not over dinner while the staff is in the next room. Not in the car on the way to another event. But here, now, about what's really going on." He turned to Amara. "And I want you to help us fix this." Everyone looked at him like he'd lost his mind. "Excuse me?" Marilyn's voice was sharp. Darren held up his hands. "Hear me out. Amara knows how to tell stories. She knows how to make people feel something. She built an entire platform on raw, honest emotion. What if, instead of firing her, we hired her? What if we took control of this narrative before it controls us?" Charles shook his head. "You want us to work with the person who exploited us?" Darren looked his father in the eye. "I want you to work with someone who sees you clearly. Someone who isn't afraid to show the messy, complicated truth. Because that's what people connected with, Dad. Not your wealth. Not your success. Your humanity. Your pain. Your struggle. That's what made those videos go viral. People recognized themselves in your story." He turned to his mother. "Mom, you run hotels that cater to people who want authentic experiences. Why? Because people are tired of fake. They want real. Well, this is as real as it gets." Marilyn looked at Amara, then back at her son. "And you think exposing our private life even more will somehow fix things?" Darren shook his head. "I think telling your story on your terms with your permission might be the most honest thing you've done in years. And I think it might help other people who are going through the same thing. You're not the only couple struggling. You're just the only 1 million people accidentally saw behind the curtain." The room fell silent again. Charles and Marilyn looked at each other, really looked at each other, for the first time in months. Charles spoke first, his voice heavy. "I don't know how to fix this, Marilyn. I don't know how to fix us." Marilyn's eyes filled with tears. "Neither do I." Darren stepped back, giving them space. And Amara, still standing by the window, spoke quietly. "Maybe you don't have to fix it. Maybe you just have to be honest about what's broken. And maybe, if you're brave enough, other people will see themselves in your story and feel less alone." 6 months later, the Westbrooks launched a podcast. It was Marilyn's idea, actually, after weeks of therapy and hard conversations. They called it Behind the Money, taking ownership of the name that had exposed them. In it, they talked openly about their marriage struggles, their therapy journey, their mistakes, their hopes. Amara produced it. She learned audio editing, marketing, how to craft narratives that felt honest without being exploitative. She interviewed other couples, featured therapists, created a community of people who were tired of pretending their lives were perfect. The podcast became one of the top relationship shows in the country. Not because it was dramatic, but because it was real. Charles and Marilyn didn't magically fix their marriage. They're still working on it. Some days are good. Some days are hard. But they're working on it together, and they're not hiding anymore. And Amara? She found what she was looking for. Not fame, but purpose. She built something meaningful. Something that helped people. She learned that being seen isn't about going viral. It's about being honest. About connecting. About using your voice to heal instead of harm. On the 1-year anniversary of that devastating living room confrontation, Marilyn pulled Amara aside. "You know," she said quietly, "what you did was wrong. I'm still hurt by it. Some days I'm angry about it. But I also know that if it hadn't happened, Charles and I would probably be divorced by now. We were too proud to ask for help. Too scared to admit we were drowning. You forced us to face the truth. You broke us open. And somehow, we're putting ourselves back together in a way that feels more real than anything we had before." Amara nodded, tears in her eyes. "I'm still sorry." Marilyn squeezed her hand. "I know. And we're still healing. But maybe that's the point. Maybe we're all just broken people trying to find our way back to whole." And maybe, sometimes, the person who breaks you open is also the one who helps you see what needs fixing. Not every betrayal ends in war. Some end in transformation. Sometimes the stranger in your house comes to teach a lesson your own heart has been avoiding. And sometimes, the worst thing that ever happened to you becomes the thing that saves you. Now let me ask you something. What would you have done in the Westbrooks place? Would you have fired Amara immediately? Called the police? Or would you have found a way to turn betrayal into healing the way they did? And what about Amara? Do you think she deserved a second chance? Or was what she did unforgivable regardless of her reasons? I want to hear from you. Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Tell me where you're watching from. Tell me if this story made you think about your own life, your own relationships, your own secrets. Because here's the truth. We all have things we hide. We all have pain we don't want others to see. The question is, what do we do when someone holds up a mirror and forces us to look? If the story moved you, hit that subscribe button. We've got more stories coming that will make you think, make you feel, and maybe make you see your own life a little differently. Stories about real people facing impossible choices. Stories about forgiveness, redemption, and what it really means to be human. Next week, we're covering a story that will shake you. A tale of secrets, revenge, and a lesson you'll carry with you long after the video ends. Don't miss it. Until then, take care of each other. Be honest with the people you love. And remember, sometimes the hardest conversations are the ones that save us.